Hi guys, welcome to Aquasquare Lab. Today I want to talk about a very different topic, and in fact I was having a conversation with one of my customers, but he happens to be one of the very renowned science teachers as well. And we were discussing about water chemistry, and what we found that the concept which I always had known, but I never knew the exact scientific term for it, and I got to know about it in that conversation. So most of us, we live in societies wherein we are getting water with a TDS of 120, 130. This is the water that we don't use the RO system in most of the societies, and we use basic filtration because it is already a very treated water and then doesn't require a very heavy RO filtration on it. Now, this water, which is approximately 120 TDS, now the concept that I knew always was that this water is full of nutrition. In fact, it's loaded with nutrition. And because of so much of nutrition, the plants and fish, they go into shock when you put them in this water during the early stage of the planted aquarium. When you put these plants and fish in this water, they get into a transformation stage. So we will have to talk about in three different ways. And in fact, let me actually introduce you to the term, which is the scientific name for it is eutrophic water. So what is eutrophic water? Eutrophic water is basically water which is loaded with nutrition. So I was just going through some of the details. What is the eutrophic water? And I found that this water which is coming from a tap is eutrophic water and is mixed with so many nutrition. And then if you look at the GH and KH, it will be like immensely high on that. And we don't want that to be part of that water in such high volumes. Now let's talk about the three different stages or three different types of plants when we grow and what happens to that. So let's talk about the first one. Now most of us would go online and buy plants or probably take the cuttings from somebody or get it online. Now this plant is usually in a immersed format. So they are grown in an immersed format. So when you say immersed, it's like half in water and half outside water. The root will be inside the water, and then probably the main structure of the plant will be outside the water. So most of the plants that we buy are in this form, and then when we put it inside our aquarium, it needs to transform from this immersed to a submerged growth. Now obviously we don't have time or we don't have that complete setup to slowly and gradually give that shock to the plant and then they move into this transition. So what we do is we put the plant inside the water, and when this eutrophic water gives a shock to these plants, most of the time there is a sudden change in the environment, and what happens, they most of the time will melt or they will get affected with algae. So there will be issues. Now let's talk about the second variety of plants which you buy, which is the tissue culture. Now there is an advantage to that. I'll tell you why. Tissue culture are plants which are grown in a lab environment. When these plants are introduced in our planted setups, what you also have to understand that the immunity is a little higher compared to the other plants, and they are actually in the stage wherein they are literally at the beginning of the growth. At that time, even if they get a new environment, they adapt to it very fast, because one, they've been grown in lab, they are more sustainable to the environment, the new environment, and they have more immunity, obviously. So that's the reason they have a more better survival rate. Now, the third type of plant is the best way to get it, is from hobbyist to hobbyist. Now, reason I'll tell you is most hobbyists will be maintaining a TDS of around 120, 130 in their aquarium. Now, this is, don't get confused that this TDS is a planted aquarium TDS versus already a TDS which comes from the society water. That's different. This is matured water, conditioned water. So when you pick up plants from there and put it in your aquarium, there is a very less chance it will die or affect, because it's like it's already growing in a setup which is very similar to yours, and then the transition happens very easily. So this is what it is, and then these are the three different type of plants which get affected. But the important factor here is to understand the word eutrophic, and basically it's like very heavy very heavy nutritions in it. Now, specifically, if I talk about nutrition, it could be I mean, there could be sodium, there could be metals in it, there could be chlorine in it, so all of that. But if you talk about how, now what is the solution of it? Okay, now the solution for that is, and then that's what we do here, is, now for, in fact, to understand the solution, you also need to know how does the RO, the reverse osmosis in your house, or if you have a RO system in your house, how does that work? Now, the reverse osmosis system, when it outputs the water, when it throws the water, or it processes the water and the output water that comes out, now that is a remineralized water. Okay, so what happens is, like, there is a small pipe inside inside the RO system which has a T on it. The absolute filtered water is going and coming out, and what it does is there is another line which mix the filtered, or mix the a little higher TDS water with this to equalize the TDS, and there is a valve there, and you can increase or decrease that. What it does is basically it maintains the temperature, but it has its own limit. And if the limit is gone, probably the filtration inside the, or the filters inside the, or the membranes inside the RO system is gone. So you will have to change that. But for our topic, how do we do that? So basically, the RO valve, what we do here is we put it on zero, and what we get out of the water is absolutely filtered water with zero TDS, or not close, not zero TDS, but approximately. It's very difficult to achieve zero TDS, but uh, around 10 TDS. And when you do that, obviously it's not drinkable. It's not good for uh, good for the anyone. Now, what you do is, in an ideal setup, is you recondition that water, and then you will be putting in calculated amount of nutrition. Like, for example, there are products from various companies. CCAM has its own products, so there are like tons of products in the and then that has the details of reconditioning the water with the right nutrition. But this time, what you have done is actually reconditioned the water in the exact uh, quantity and calculative amount. So that is what is very important to understand here. And when you put that water, you are in control of what you putting inside your planted aquarium, and then hence that ways you will be able to transition your plants, or when you're setting up new aquarium, it will really help you. So I wanted to make this video to help you understand what the water chemistry is all about, and how does it affect multiple plants and all. So I hope you like the video. If you have any questions, do let me know on the comments, and I'll be happy to answer that. Bye bye.